or as the locals call it, Atlanta. Atlanta was founded in 1837, so let's go for a little history lesson. Let's turn back the clock. Oh, wait, that's too far. We're in 1815 now. Let me... 1837. Okay, 1837. All right. So in 1837, Atlanta was founded under the name Terminus because it was at the end of the terminal of two different train railroads, the Western and Atlantic Railroad lines. Shortly afterwards, its name was changed to Marthasville, named after the daughter of a governor. Then its name was eventually changed to Atlanta in reference to the Atlantic Railroad line. The original settlers of this area were the indigenous Creek tribe. Unfortunately, many of them died in the War of 1817, and those who survived were expelled from their land. Tragedy would continue with the American Civil War, where Atlanta would be an important military and railroad supply hub for the Confederate Army. Racial tensions would continue despite the war ending, including in the Atlanta Massacre of 1906. In 1917, a terrible fire swept through Atlanta, destroying thousands of buildings and leaving thousands more homeless. And yet, despite all these tragedies, Atlanta continues to be an important cultural center for film, music, and art. Shall we begin?
Yes, sir.
All right, we've got so little to do in so much time. Wait, strike that, reverse it. Midtown. It's a nice little place, a little cafe type setting. Good for food and drink. However, it wasn't always here. Before it was here, there was a residential house right where it sits. This was no ordinary house. It was thought by the locals to be the haunted house of the neighborhood. Kids would make up stories about it. They would tell stories about how the man who lived there once had killed his entire family before offing himself. There's another story the children would tell was about how the house itself was alive and some would enter and not return. It was as if the house itself would eat children. A la the 2006 animated masterpiece Monster House. Even to this day, there are strange occurrences at Babs sometimes. One day, a young couple was sitting right about there, right inside the window, just enjoying their meal, when they saw a strange man enter. He had an odd suit that was tattered and torn. He had a top hat, which was torn as well. He sat down at the table next to them, and they noticed something rather disturbing. His face, his skin was peeling off in layers. The man got up. They saw him go to the restroom and close the door. They alerted a waiter to the presence of the strange man. The waiter went and knocked on the door of the restroom. Anyone in there? No answer. He tried the doorknob. It was unlocked. There was no one in there. What was even stranger was that the bathroom had no windows, so it was as if the apparition had vanished into thin air. Let's continue. For a while, but it's been Civas before and it will be Civas again. It's just going under renovations. However, it's a nice place where the hookah lounge has got food, drinks, Mediterranean food. Great place for a nice hookup if you're into that. However, before it was here, there was an animal shelter on its grounds. An animal shelter that burned down in a terrible fire. Don't cry. All the animals got out. Unfortunately, 4 employees burned alive in the fire.
Oh dang! But I'm glad
to this day. Says a lot about your priorities. It's good to have priorities. Anyways, last employee on shift was closing up shop when he heard a voice from somewhere in the restaurant yelling, "Help! Help! I'm trapped! I'm trapped!" He frantically looked around trying to find the person who was trapped. He looked at every bathroom, every closet, every nook and cranny. There was no one there. He was alone. So loud. Okay. Wait for the bathroom. Here. Piedmont Avenue Health and Wellness is a nice little treatment facility that tends to people who have been in car accidents or have pre-existing conditions. Now, this seems innocent enough. However, there was a period in the 90s where something happened there that was a little bit odd. There was this doctor who started working here right out of residency, and he kept to himself mostly, and he was known for a distinctive look. He wore these strange gold-rimmed spectacles. However, and he was well liked by his patients, a good enough doctor, but he kept mostly to himself, was known for being a bit of a recluse. That was fine though, because he did his job. But 3 years after he started working here, he was found dead in his home by apparent suicide. When the detectives looked in the basement of his home, they found something odd down there. There was a room that the whole room, the walls, the ceiling, were all covered in human body parts. It was suspected that he was doing experiments on bodies of deceased people who had pre-existing conditions. It was suspected consensually that he got their permission, but there was no legal avenue for this. Why was he doing this? Some think it was he was trying to cure some ailment. Some think he was looking for the key to eternal life. Whatever the case, his ghost is still known to walk the premises. Sometimes the receptionists report he'd seeing a man with the gold-rimmed spectacles to match the doctor's description coming in, reading them with a nod as he did in his life, and heading back towards the break room. They hear coffee being poured in the break room, and then they hear his footsteps disappearing down the hallway until they fade into nothing. Now, he was known for being quite a neat freak during his life, and so is he too in the afterlife. For the cups in the break room will just kind of stack themselves. There's also a radio in the break room, which will, whenever people turn it on to whatever station they want, it will switch to classical just randomly at will. And then they'll switch it back where they want, and then it will just switch back to classical. Now, that seems like not that malevolent a ghost for what you'd expect from the human body parts, but still kind of annoying unless you like classical, so. Yeah, that's this one. Alright, let's go. Nation Center, now apparently boarded up. It was not boarded up last time I came here. But anyways, got some stories about there. So, everyone likes thrifting. It's a fun thing to do, great way to get cheap finds. However, sometimes be careful what you pick up off the shelves, because some items have a history and some properties that come with it. At this very donation center, some strange items were donated. One was a porcelain doll with a crack down the center of its face. When they found this doll, they immediately put it in the bin to be discarded because it had a crack on its face, as I said. One evening, when they were about to close up shop, one of the employees heard a strange whispering coming from somewhere in the room. He followed the noise to its source. It got louder and louder as he reached the corner of the room. He looked down, there was the bin, the donation bin, and there was the doll staring right back at him. The whispering suddenly stopped. They threw that doll away. It's gone. Yeah. But another item that was donated here that actually made it to the shelves was a wooden statue of a goat and a man, seemingly African in origin, about this big. They put it on the shelves, and it would always, when they leave it one place, it would appear on a different shelf elsewhere in the store, and then it would go somewhere else. It just would seemingly teleport around the shelves. Stranger still, items that were placed near the statue would fall off and hit the floor. The employees would go and replace it, and it would fall again, and it would the cycle would repeat itself, so they decided it became unofficial store policy to not place anything near the goat statue. Another item donated here, a beautiful gold-framed mirror, ornate and antique. However, this mirror had some strange properties. First of all, the face of the mirror would sometimes fog up. The employees would get Windex and wipe it down, and it wouldn't do anything. The fog would remain. It was almost as if the fog was not on the surface of the mirror, but was instead inside the reflection. Stranger still, sometimes when someone would look in the mirror, they would see a figure dart by in the background. This would even happen when there was only one employee left in the building. Perhaps the most terrifying item donated to this center, however, is the stuff of legend. It was a small, sort of like a novelty toy about this big, resembled an organ grinder monkey, with one drumstick in each hand and a small drum at its base. There was a key in the back. When you spun the key, its hand would raise. Now legend has it, when the monkey's drumstick falls, someone in the area will die a mysterious death. That last story isn't true, it's the plot of the movie The Monkey, based on a Stephen King story. It's a really great movie, I recommend it. You can stream it.
That just came out, didn't it?
Yeah, it came out, a year ago. The other stories are actually in the script, though. I just have fun with the last one. Alright, shows, the big musicals, get the Wickeds and the Hamiltons and whatnot. Now you can see over there, you kind of see the tip of the dome. That's sort of what it's like on the inside, too. It's got a, sort of a... It's very influenced by Middle Eastern architecture, because this building was originally founded by the organization The Shriners, but they didn't even stick with it through opening because they ran out of money, and it was bought by a guy who turned it into a movie palace, and then it was a movie palace for a while until it eventually became the Fox Theater, as it is to this day. Now, legend has it that before the Shriners, before even they were there, on this ground there was a convent that collapsed in on itself, killing everyone inside. To this day, there are strange apparitions in almost every room. They do their own ghost tours around Halloween. They have tours that are just for the Fox because there's so many ghosts. But one of the most common apparitions is a strange woman in a nun's habit who stands in the corner of the main room there. When guests look closer, though, they notice something odd. The nun has no face. When they alert security guards to the presence of the nun, it's already gone. It's vanished into thin air. Now, one evening, when the security guards were doing their closing rounds, he was in the elevator and he heard a banging on the other side of the elevator shaft. He looked around the building trying to find the source of the noise. Where it was loudest was the women's restroom. He knocked on the door, being a gentleman. Anyone here? Security? No answer. He opened the door. What he saw there would haunt him for the rest of his life. This air was full of fog all over the restroom, and the stall doors were banging, open and shut, and open and shut. He freaked out and ran, and got the other security guard. When he brought him back to the restroom, it was just a totally normal restroom. All right, let's go to the public draft house over there. That's the next bar. I don't know. Hopefully they'll have space for us. It's got some strange occurrences. One night, it was the morning. Forgive me, it was the morning. One morning, a coach was opening up shop when he noticed one of the ropes was in place, as if someone had forgotten to put it away the night before. No big deal. He walked up to fix the rope. When he smelled something odd, he looked down. There was a pool of blood at the base. He went to get his camera to go take a picture of it. By the time he got back, not only was the pool of blood gone, but the ropes were neatly coiled as they were supposed to be the night before. Now, this place also gets a lot of cold spots. You know what cold spots are?
I think so.
Cold spots is when you go to a particular place and you notice just a random chill when you're in a particular area. They're especially known here for the women's locker room is especially haunted. Lockers will randomly open and close and lock and unlock with no apparent cause. So if you ever go climbing here, enjoy it, but remember, maybe check the rope harness a couple of times. Make sure no spectral hands have tampered with it. This area during the Civil War was called Tight Squeeze. Developed this nickname because it was an area for cutthroats and thieves, and it was a tight squeeze to get through with your life. However, the term tight squeeze developed a bit of a twisted double meaning as time went on. For during the 70s and 80s, this was where Wayne Williams, aka the Midtown Strangler, was known to prowl. In fact, in the basement of this very church, there's evidence that he stored his victims for short periods of time. One winter, the furnace went out in the church, and they sent a handyman down there to fix it. While he was down there, just working on the furnace, he heard a shuffling and some noise from around the room. He looked up, there was a man staring straight at him about 6 feet away. He said, "Can I help you?" The man suddenly ran at him and put him in a chokehold. He fell to his knees. He was gasping for breath. Suddenly, the pain subsided. He could breathe again. He looked up. There was no one there. It's got all the normal things. It's got, random footsteps, strange voices, apparitions. Apparitions here include a man in a cowboy type hat who hangs out in the corner. There's a woman in a bonnet who sits behind the bar. There's a woman in a white dress who floats around the whole room. Now this place also, when it was created, the chef who worked here originally was so iconic and so dedicated to his craft. He was buried with a fork and knife across his chest and the restaurant's menu, according to legend. Also, according to legend, he still haunts the premises and will bang pots and pans together as the doors are closed to signal the end of the shift. Now they have a fine selection of wines here, stored in the wine cellar, and also down there, allegedly, is the ghost of a sommelier who signals what wine selections for the night by clinking bottles together. Also, this place has the name Cypress, which is the name of the street and the name of the restaurant. It was named after this guy who was getting ready in his bridal, getting ready for. I lost my train of thought. Getting ready for his wedding in a bridal suite in a local hotel. While he was putting his suit on, he received word from a messenger that his bride-to-be had been shot in a case of mistaken identity while traveling in a carriage through Midtown. He was so grief-stricken, he kept his tuxedo on for weeks, or so they say, and though he was pursued by many eligible bachelorettes, he never remarried. Some say he died of a broken heart. He still thought the haunting as well. Sometimes a man in a suit matching his description will just walk around. Consider toasting to him with his signature drink. There's a drink somewhere on that long menu called Cypress. So yeah, that's the tour. I hope you guys enjoyed yourselves.
Absolutely.
I certainly did.
Thank you.